Come on. There we go. Now we'll just wait for the other screen. Now that's working. And let's see here. Okay, that's good. And now we pop out the chat, which I forgot to do. And there we go. And as they say, Bob is your uncle. There we go. I hope you folks are doing well today. It's sunny. It's going to be getting warmer. It's going to be above freezing, but it's going to be very windy today. It seems like the whole planet is kind of windy. I don't know what's going on. Hope it's not a wind apocalypse. That'd be terrible. Oh, what we got going on in here? A bunch of people in the chat. That's always nice to see. Good afternoon from a gray and rainy Berlin. Nice. Good morning from Nova. I'll be in your neck of the woods at the end of August, Nova. Let's see here. Uncle Adam is great because he does beginner stuff and he covers Warcry. Well, I appreciate your the sentiment. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Finally sunny in Columbus. We got Buffalo, Baldwin, Spokanistan. That sultry new microphone sound. True. Yeah, you're very right there, VJ Morph. I do have a new microphone. You can kind of see it sticking up above the monitor here. And it is it's working quite well. It's quite nice. Yeah. Columbus, Ohio. Nice crisp sound. Thank you very much. Myersville, Maryland. Chile, Cincinnati. Let's see here. Lincolnshire, or Lincolnshire, probably. You probably don't say the Shire part. Corpus Christi, Massachusetts. Listening on the drive to Maine. Well, hopefully not watching while you're driving, because we don't need that. I mean, unless someone else is driving, then that's fine. But glad to have you. Let's see here. Wurzburg, Germany. South Florida. 73 and sunny. Well, sure, I suppose. Oklahoma, Germany, Tennessee, Wyoming. Good morning from Oklahoma, attempting to build some of the pile of shame. Pile of potential. I like that term quite a bit. Afternoon from a stormy Ireland. Nice. Devon, England. Thank you for the company in self-isolation due to COVID test. Hope you've had a great week. It's been fine. It's been fine. I hope that you get well soon, Ben. Did you have a snow squall warning on Friday like in Madison? Yes. It was about, 6 o'clock p.m. My wife and I were watching some news and stuff on YouTube, and all of a sudden both our phones just started blowing up, making all kinds of noise, like when there's some sort of terrible warning or whatever, and then it was like, oh, it's a snow squall, and we're like, the heck is a snow squall? We've never heard that term before. Like, they just were throwing it around like, oh yeah, no, it's a snow squall. Like a tornado warning. Yeah, we've had those all the time. Snow squall I've never heard of before, and we're like, whatever. And then it did it again. We're like, so then we were going to go over to our friend's house, and we were going to hang out there for a bit and then go get some dinner at a restaurant or something like that. And we got up and walked out of the den into the dining room and realized we couldn't see across the street because it was certainly a snow squall, I guess. We still got there. I mean, it wasn't the end of the world, but it was probably 50 mile per hour winds or something like that. It was rough, but it's okay. Good evening from Qatar. Working in cosplay while I watch. Nice. Montreal, Canada. Calgary, Hillsboro, Oregon. Morning from Los Angeles. How you doing? Oxnard, not Oxford. Oxnard, California. Hello from Argentina. Rhode Island, Germany. Painting Orc Commandos. I've got to work on my Orc Commandos from the Octarius box. I got the Death Corps of Krieg done, and I never went beyond that, so... Good morning from Saskatchewan. Always fun to say Saskatchewan. I like to say pile of opportunity. Also a good idea. We are Uncle Adam's tabletop minions, and we're worldwide. That's true. It's very true. Hello from Moscow. Howdy. Let me see here. The big question is, do I buy some of the Army Painter Speed Paints, or do I buy all of the Army Painter Speed Paints? That's a good question, honestly. It kind of depends, I suppose, on... I guess I didn't sit down and look and see how much savings you get by buying the whole kit versus buying, if you were to buy all those bottles individually. I don't know about that. There may be some colors maybe that you don't use as much. So you maybe, if there's certain colors that you use more frequently, maybe just buy those. You know, like I've said recently, I don't use a lot of blues and greens too much, so I wouldn't necessarily pick those up personally. You know, but there's I don't know. That's a good question. That's a you question, unfortunately, I think. But you know, yeah, again, and I don't know, like if you went through and priced them all together, I don't know what the savings is. I'm assuming there's some, probably. Good morning from Utah, Pittsburgh, Ireland. Greetings from Twin Cities. We get snow squalls in Newfoundland pretty often. They are no joke. Well, I mean, like, I know what a squall is. I know what the word is, but I've just never heard it referred to that around here. Like, we get a snowstorm, we get a blizzard, we get whiteout conditions, but snow squall is like I feel like there was somebody new working at the, whatever, the National Weather Association or whatever that's called. NWA? That's probably not what they're called. Anyway, yeah, and they're like, what if we called it a snow squall? And you're like, oh, well, like, sure, why not? That sounds cool. Just kind of, you know, jazzing it up a little bit. Good morning from mid-Michigan, working on some night haunts on this clear but chilly morning. I like the night haunts. They're a lot of fun. Painting aliens from Gale Force 9, another glorious day in the core. Oh, yeah. The aliens-based board gamey kind of thing. Yeah. Got the starter pack of speed paints. Love the heck out of them. Buying the mega pack 100% for sure. I was just talking to my store owner friend yesterday. I was in the store. I was actually dropping off copies of Rain in Hell so that he could have them in the store to sell. I had a bunch of extra copies from Gen Con that... So anyway. But I was talking to him about that, and he was like, asking, you know, he said he's going to be getting the line in, but I don't know if he's getting individual bottles or just the boxes. But he's definitely doing that. I suggested he should think about getting the airbrush paints in as well, mainly just because he doesn't have any airbrush paints in stock, and I think that their Army Painter's airbrush paints are really nice. I like them quite a bit. Let's see here. Pile of potential equals POP. Pile of opportunity equals POO. So I think I'll stick with pile of potential as opposed to poo. I can understand that. Sure. There you go. Las Vegas checking in. How you doing? Building some Star Wars Legion models. Local game shop closed down, open less than a year, so I picked up a couple of boxes before I have to go back online buying. Nice. I think I'm going to have to go the full set, but not until I bury enough of a good chunk of the contrast I already have. Yeah, no, I can understand that too. Like, again, they're slightly different. You know, like specific colors, like, you know, Pallid Bone is very close to Skeleton Horde, but if you put them next to each other, they're not the same. So, you know, it's not, I don't know. It's nice if you've got both, if you'd be like, well, I want something that's just a little bit more this way or a little bit more that way when working on whatever you're working on, maybe bone, skeleton, whatever. But yeah. Painting Dire Avengers is a test to see if I want to paint a whole Space Elves army. I mean, I wouldn't. But that's me, though. I'm not necessarily the same there. Let's see here. I've heard of snow happening in Queensland. It basically appears as a few chunks of ice on the lawn in the morning. Well, that's not too bad. Spending my afternoon building more apocalyptic terrain for Zona Alpha. I have a multiplayer game on Wednesday. Nice. Oh, a 6x4 board. That's a big board for Zona Alpha. Nice. Planning on painting up the new Chaos Chosen today. Cool. You should dye that goatee red and have a Dimebag Daryl thing going on. It is kind of... I took a shower and it sort of, and I dried it, but it's yeah, I gotta trim it down. I didn't have time this morning, but I do need to trim it down. It is, well, you know, it's winter, so there you go. So you got to, you know, you got to do you got to keep your chin warm with hair or whatever. But thank you, moderator Matt, for letting me know. But I appreciate it. We had a snow day on Friday here. Wife and daughter got to sleep in while I went out to shovel the driveway and clean off the car. Had freezing rain before the snow, so it was bad driving. Oh yeah, that's no fun. Freezing rain before the snow is never good. Let's see here. You know what aliens, another glorious day in the core needs? Sexy xenomorphs. But where could we find such things? So that's a reference to yesterday. I had a live chat with the Uncle Adam's Irregulars, which are the Patreon supporters at the $4 level, which is my highest level. Anyway, I was talking about how I was searching through My Mini Factory, the website, looking for STLs of aliens, not specifically Giger's aliens from the Alien franchise, but like just the aliens, not xenomorphs per se. But of course, I found a lot of xenomorph models or xenomorph adjacent models, and I expected that. But I also saw, which I did not expect, several that had boobs and kind of like molded in organic high heels as well. And I'm like, I don't get that. I don't know what's going on there. So anyway, that's a callback to that. So yeah, I did not order or download or whatever any of those. So there's that. Good morning from frigid Alberta. Tried to find the speed paint starter set. They were sold out, so I'm trying VMA metals for the first time. Oh, nice. Having a break from my airbrush session. 4 Warcry Warbands, Chimera, and the big cat thing, Mind Stealer, whatever he's called it. I know what you're talking about. Yep. Star Wars Legion next. That's a lot of airbrushing. Nice. First time to catch you live. Love your content. Painting a Slave Ogren for my Necromunda campaign gang. Such a cool model. I think I have seen those. Yes, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. But yeah, welcome. Absolutely. You could hide a warband in that beard. I mean, probably not. I do have a model here. I don't even think he could hang on with his axe. No. So I won't be able to do that. Let's see here. All in my group have Warcry minis, but we're all into 40k too, and that's a fine, good beard. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I was foully tricked by my Gaslands buddies on Friday. They made me help them load 600 shotgun shells instead of the game. Well, that is not the same thing. Weird, huh? Oh, well, yeah, I mean, because I would think that Gaslands would be better, but there you go. Have you ever used the points of interest rules in Zona Alpha? It makes a great game even better. I haven't. Now they come to think of it. No. Whoever else is in Alberta, are you enjoying this cold wave? There you go. Is Nick being shy today? Whoops. He's back there. He's just chilling. Let's see here. Love the Sunday talks. I'm working on the old metal Archaon for a Warcry event. Oh, nice. That'll be fun. It's pretty amazing how much you can generate with 2 liters of resin. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. Good day from Vienna. Happy to see the show live for once. Pre-ordered my speed paints back in January. Should arrive tomorrow. Very excited. Nice. I know somebody on Friday when I was streaming on Twitch on Friday morning, they had said that they had a tracking number that said that their speed paints, the smaller kit, not the big mega kit, but the smaller kit was out for delivery or whatever, and they were going to be getting it that morning. So I know that at least, I don't know, here, and I think that they were in the US, maybe they were in Canada, I don't know. But yeah, it is getting out into the wild from my understanding, which is good. Like I said, the bigger kit will not be shipping, I think, until sometime in March. So, hi from Scotland. I have a Slaves to Darkness Star collecting box and can't find the motivation to build and paint. Any advice? Love your channel. Well, thank you. Motivation to build. I generally find that audio helps me a lot. Audiobooks, podcasts, even, maybe if, streams like this or something like that you can get a recording of, like this, once this is done, it becomes a recording that you can watch on YouTube. Twitch is the same way. If you follow somebody on Twitch and they do maybe more of a talking kind of just, whatever, if you want audio in the background, the motivation in that situation for me comes from sometimes if the story is good enough in the audiobook, or if the, podcast subject is good enough, I don't want to just like listen to it, like just standing around in my living room or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I want to be doing something at the same time. And so for me, there are times when I want to listen to the next chapter, but I'm maybe not necessarily super jazzed to sit down and build, but I would feel weird just not doing anything and listening. So, I'll be doing something with my hands. And I know a lot of people like to do chores and things like that while listening to podcasts and audiobooks and whatever, but I don't seem to want to. Well, sometimes, but generally, if I've gotten it, my brain trained that if I'm listening to an audiobook or a podcast, I'm probably also hobbying at the same time. So sometimes hearing more of the story is how you trick yourself into making yourself build or paint. I did a video about motivation and stuff like that years and years ago, and I mentioned that kind of thing in there too. Question about the topic. So you'll be able to use the box sets from Underworlds, Thunderix Profiteers. Will they have Warcry cards? Yeah, so, well, not cards per se, but stats. So the Tome of Champions 2021 there, in the back, in the appendix, they do They do a bunch of stuff. So number one, they put out stats for a bunch of stuff that came out after the Grand Alliance books came out. So the Lumineth and some more Stormcast and I forget what else. Oh, the Cruel Boys that came out in the Dominion box set and all that kind of stuff. So now there are stats for them. But then in this section here, which is called Bladeborn Fighters, this section is all just stats for the sets. I picked up another set yesterday. The Ideneth Deepkin, and the whole reason I bought it, honestly, is just because I want that guy, the crab. I'm going to do something with him. I just don't know what, but definitely, I think I might just change his name from Duneclaw or whatever to Crabnos, the Destroyer of Worlds, or something like that. So anyway, but yeah, pretty much, I can't think of other than maybe the Harrow Deep box that just came out, the first, like, from the new season or whatever of Warhammer Underworlds. I don't think that there's Warcry stats in this book for that particular, but everything else previous, all the way back to the beginning, back to Shadespire, there's stats for in this new book, so you can use them in Warcry, which is very cool. And I will talk a little bit in a bit about my plans for mixing these two people together. Well, not people, groups. The Snarlfangs, whatever his name is, Rippa's Snarlfangs and Zarbag's Gits, turning them into a single warband. And then also, we've got the, what do you call it, the Crimson Court here, and the old Sepulchral Guard, which I can kind of say now. So I've gotten that going for me. Gonna take the Sepulchral Guard over to Osgiliath, and it'll be great. So, yeah. Just don't eat anything until you've built them all? Well, that seems not very... I don't know if that's not a good idea. You could get low blood sugar. I've been using a 5-liter jug of white glue I bought in 2005 to this day. Still have a ton of scenery with it. You'd be surprised how much. That's pretty cool. Let's see. I grabbed my first warband this week, Crimson Court. Hyped for a skirmish style game. Age of Sigmar is amazing. Nice to know I can just chill and play a few quick games. Deck building is overwhelming. Yeah, I think that's a big reason of why the Warhammer Underworlds has a new format that basically is you use the decks that come standard in the box or something like that for each of these. Yeah, because a lot of people were tired of the deck building and the constant chasing of cards, and you're like, oh, I got to buy this. You know, the people who were playing it more competitively were starting to notice there's the same 11 cards in everybody's deck. You know what I mean? And then you have these other cards and blah, 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 or whatever. But everybody used the same cards over and over. And so they wanted to kind of tweak that. And I think that's good. Got to have the Crabman. I heard he's feisty. Nice. Sorry, I missed it. When does the new Tome of Champions come out? I think yesterday. I'm 90% sure, but I could be wrong. Wait, does the book also have stuff in it like Crimson Court? Yes. So yeah, Crimson Court's in there. Yeah, like I said, every single one except for the newest, which I think is whatever I forget the one that's I think it's based off the new set, which is called Harrow Deep. I don't know. And I think it's got that monkey with the knife on his tail. Like that set, I don't think is in here because they came out after this was printed. But every other one of these boxes, you know, that since, like I said, since the original Shadespire, they all have stats in there. So it's like the whole back third of the book, at least, is all just stats in the appendix for the warbands that you can use in Warhammer Underworlds. And you can mix them and match them. You can't be like, I'm going to take some Zarbag's Gits and put them in with the Crimson Court. You can't do that. They need to keep the same, like, faction. But Crimson Court and Sepulchral Guard are both Soulblight Gravelords, so they can mix together. But you could also then take some regular Age of Sigmar skeletons that are part of Soulblight Gravelords, and you could put them in there as well. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm only going to use, you know, Underworlds models. That's what I'm planning to doing here. But if you wanted to, you could take a couple of Underworlds models and also regular Age of Sigmar models and mix them all together to make a, like for my Skaven, I'll probably do the Skaven. I'll do a couple of the Skaven that are part of Spike Claw's Swarm or something like that, I believe is the name. And then just drop them into one of my current Skaven warbands for, you know, one of the rosters for funds. Rivals format. That's what it's called. Yep, Jim Crimmins. Rivals format is the new kind of format for Underworlds where everybody has to use kind of like a specific deck instead of, it gets rid of the deck building basically, which I think is nice. The way I get motivated when I can't be bothered to paint is to pick one part that I'm going to paint, like the silver pants, and then silver parts, not silver pants, although silver pants would be pretty cool. And then I'll just decide to just paint the next bit and the next bit. Yeah, I did a video about that actually, I think called Just Do One Thing. And the idea was, you know, if you're having a hard time like painting, you're just like, I just can't get, so just convince yourself, I'm just going to paint the boots. Just the boots. It'll be brown boots. I'm going to paint them. And at least you're heading in that direction. And then maybe once you get the boots painted, you're like, well, I mean, I'm here. My brush is wet. You know, I got the water, all that stuff. I'll work on the pants next. And then it just kind of hopefully starts going. Harrow Deep and the Ogre Pirate won't be in there. Yeah, I think that's right. Maybe a Warcom article, Warhammer community article. Yeah, for those, probably the case. I mean, because the stuff from Cursed City and the Cruel Boys, and I don't remember about the Lumineth because I'm not a big elf fan, but I know that the models from Cursed City and the Cruel Boys, they were already a free PDF that was on the Warhammer community site, so you could download the Warcry rules to be able to use those in Warcry. Those are now in the book though, but they're still, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe they're still on the Warhammer community site. I don't know. Looks like I will finally try out Warcry with my vampires. Yeah, those Crimson Court. I bought those before I knew that this was going to be happening for Warcry, and I was just like, I wasn't really playing Underworlds anymore, but I'm like, I'm going to do something cool with these vampires because they're just great sculpts. So I'm really glad. Is Cursed City's characters in there? Yeah, like I said, they are part of the Soulblight Gravelords. So, well, maybe not characters, not the good guy characters. No, actually, now that I come to think of it, the good guys, like, I don't remember any of their names. I'm not good with that. But like, there's the lady with the armor, and she's got like the giant eagle head as part of her cape. I don't know what's going on there. And then the guy with all the like the gun that has all the wooden stakes, which I'm assuming he's a vampire hunter of some sort. He's got a big funny hat. All those models I don't think are available, but like the regular, like the skeletons and a bunch of the other stuff from that are. Let's see here. Let me just take a look. Shall I? Okay, so if you want to go with Soulblight Gravelords, there's a bunch of standard stuff like Vampire Lord, Necromancer, White King on Skeletal Steed, but the Vargoyle, is the Vargoyle part of Crimson or Cursed City? I don't remember. I know the Vargskir, those guys are. The Kasargi Night Guard, those guys are. Virkos Bloodborne. I don't remember if Virkos Bloodborne is. I don't think so. But then there's also a lot of the, the Deadwalker zombies and the Skeleton Warriors and the Skeleton Champion and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can pull a bunch of those things out. But the actual like big characters, big named characters, especially the good guys, no, they're not in there. But well, they might be hidden someplace else in there. Like they might be slipped into, but I don't think so. I'd love to see Adam sporting some silver pants at TMX 23. It sounds really, really hot. I mean, and I don't mean that in like, I mean like just moist. It's June in Wisconsin. That's not a good idea. It's best if I wear shorts. I got to be honest. I had a moment of weakness a couple weeks back and bought a box of Elemental Infantry for Battletech. I love painting small. They are pretty small. That's very true. Soulblight had a PDF, but I don't think Cursed City did. They were mixed in with, like, the Soulblight portion of Cursed City was mixed in with that PDF. Because I remember downloading it going, oh, cool, now I can use my skeletons that I painted up on Twitch that are from Cursed City. Hey, Uncle Adam, having those Underworld warbands, do you feel tempted to play Underworlds every now and then? Love to hear your thought on Warhammer Underworlds. I used to play it. I mean, when it first came out, I played it quite a bit, actually. But it got to a point where there were so many different warbands they kept coming out with constantly that it was and again, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, you've got to keep up. You've got to, you know, you got to buy it all. It's not Pokemon. But that being said, new cards would come in every one of those boxes. And so it became very difficult because there would be people who'd be playing who'd buy every box, just never build or anything. They just wanted the specific cards out of it because they were getting net lists off, you know, off the internets and all that kind of stuff. And it became kind of not fun. Like I wasn't even playing in tournaments or anything like that, but you just play with somebody at like the local shop and they've got like this super tuned in deck. And I was just like, I've never liked deck building games in general. Even, you know, even stuff like Magic or whatever, that kind of stuff. I've never been into that. It's just a thing that I don't enjoy. So, yeah, so I don't know. With the Rivals format, it's a potential. But honestly, right now, for me, I would prefer to play Warcry over Underworlds, generally. I know there's a video game version of Underworlds now, so maybe, I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't tried that. Vargoyle is Popeye's girlfriend. Whoa, that's, all right, well, that's cool. I hope they're happy together. Did anyone catch the fine scale modeler video about brush care? I did not. Talked about using hair putty to retrain your Ski King out of brush bristles. I don't know what a Ski King is. Let's see here. I have older Vampire Lords, Karsteins, and Skeletons. Do you have to have the newer model to use them officially? I mean, I don't think so. I doubt if you went to a Warcry tournament at like a convention or something like that, if they were like, as long as they're Games Workshop models, they probably would be cool with it. If you were to like go, okay, well, all these Space Marines are technically skeletons, they might be like, I'm not sure. But if you're like, if these kind of older skeletons are basically the newer skeletons, they'd probably be cool with it. But I don't know. It depends on the tournament organizer. That would be a good question for them. If you're thinking about going to a convention and or a tournament, if you've ever got any questions, always contact the tournament organizer before you go there, because what sucks is when you go there and then find out you can't play this model or you're doing this wrong or whatever. It's best to find that stuff out up front. Any advice on how to get my 40K play group to give Warcry a go? Basically, it comes down to you becoming a gaming advocate, and what you end up having to do is probably build and paint 2 forces and the terrain, which all that told is not a ton of work. But yeah, and then next time you guys get together, go, hey, you want to try out this Warcry game? You use my models, you know, and that kind of stuff. And then maybe you get them. The biggest thing for me with Warcry is the fact that it's not a big army game, so I don't have to have a zillion models, at least not for a specific group. I may end up with a whole bunch of models. I'm already kind of there, but it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So it's like a buffet, but without having to worry about, you know, bacteria and viruses. But there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. That's the buffet aspect. So that's a benefit. The other benefit for me is it's also, I get to then paint cool Age of Sigmar stuff, which I've always been more of a sci-fi person, like a sci-fi fan in that way. But I remember back in the days of like the last kind of gasping days of Warhammer Fantasy being like, I just really kind of like a lot of these models, but I just don't want to play fantasy. Like, I don't want to play the game fantasy where you're moving people around in like blocks, you know, like that rank and flank style. So when Age of Sigmar came out, I was like, that's nearly what I want. But at that time, I also had much more of I was much better off with like army style games. And at this point, no, I don't want so much army. So Warcry was kind of perfect for me. So you might get some folks who are like 40K people because that's what everybody plays, but they've always kind of wanted to play some fantasy, but they didn't want to play too much fantasy. So some Warcry might be something that's attractive to them. But to get them started with it, you need to be able to teach them the game. And so you probably need two warbands and then go from there. Let's see here. My local shop will let you print off the cards and put them in sleeves to use. Huh, well, that's nice of them. I've been gearing up for Epicalypse. Epicalypse? That's hard to say. 8mm 40K Apocalypse this week. Some Aeronautic Imperialis Lightning Fighters, Valkyries, and some old 8mm Battletech infantry primed up so far. Well, that's fun. Card chase in the deck building completely ruined Underworlds. I mean, for people who don't like that kind of stuff, yeah, I can totally understand that. Not mention all the draft mechanics bloating and confusing the rules. There was a lot of tokens, too. That's, yeah. Let me see here. Somebody's getting some World War I heavy armor. Indeed. I'm ordering. I've ordered a couple of World War I tanks, 28 millimeter size tanks that I'm going to use for. So there's a game that I like called Forbidden Psalm, and Forbidden Psalm is a fantasy kind of indie skirmishy game that is generally designed to be played solo or co-op. But I think you can play it, what we call adversarially, me and Vince, against somebody. But anyway, the guy who wrote Forbidden Psalm is making a new game, which is based off of the rule set for Forbidden Psalm, but it is not a fantasy game. It is called The Last War, and it is like alternate history, World War I. So instead of being, guys with bows and swords and whatnot, it's it's rifles and bayonets and things like that. But because it's kind of like weird and alternate history or whatever, there's also haunted tanks. So I'm like, well, I kind of need an A7V, and I always thought the Renault FT World War I tank was also kind of cool. But then there's also like sentient mustard gas clouds, and there's just like all kinds of crazy weird stuff. And it's on Kickstarter currently, so unfortunately I had to do the Kickstarter. But yeah, so I wanted to pick up some tanks, so I talked to Gaddis Gaming. Let's see here. How far the mighty Underworlds has fallen. TMT award-winning gateway game to collecting dust and being repurposed. I mean, I think it's still, honestly, if you were to play the Rivals format, it's still a good gateway gaming to get board game folks into miniatures. And I still see it played from time to time at the shop by people who are either board game folks, maybe a little bit more, or even very frequently. A couple of people that I saw most recently playing it are people that I also see at the shop very frequently playing Magic. So it still has that built into it. But I don't need a gateway from board games to miniatures. I'm already there. I'm already here at miniatures, and I've got my flag planted and the whole deal. So yeah, again, if you were like trying to convince somebody who's a board gamer that miniatures are cool, I would still suggest Warhammer Underworlds. I would just tell them, I would just probably do the Rivals format. But for me personally, I still like the models. I'm just not as interested in the game as I am as Warcry. So. I had to be a game advocate for Kill Team, and it worked out great. I'm going to try doing it with Warcry as well. Nice. Let's see. That's what you need. Is that's what the hobby needs. Is people who are not just like, this is the game that I play and everything else is dumb. It's more of a, hey, I like this other thing and I will show you how to play it. And that kind of stuff. That's the opposite of gatekeeping, in my opinion. So that's good. Let's see here. Got a gaming group that I'm being an advocate for, and the new Warcry rules for Warhammer Underworlds Warbands make it easier to bring them into the miniature side of the gaming. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. New mic sounds crisp and warm. Well, thank you. Yeah, so I bought it a couple weeks ago, and it is made by a company called Beacon, which is spelled B-E-A-C-N. There's no O for reasons. Makes it high tech, I think. Anyway, it is a USB mic, like my old mic. I used to have a Blue Yeti, but instead of being a condenser mic, which picks up lots and lots of sound all over the room, you could hear. Well, so okay, the camera is over there, and this is my monitor, and in between those two is a PC, and so the fan is right there, and you would always hear fan noise in the background. When the furnace would kick in, you'd hear furnace noise in the background, all that kind of stuff. But that's a condenser mic. That's what they do. Dynamic mics, you have to be kind of close and right in the front. If you start to move over here, it gets real quiet real quickly, and if you start to move over here, so it doesn't pick up tons and tons of room noise. And generally, these types of mics are mics that you have to plug in with this big kind of cable called an XLR cable. And then you plug it into an audio interface, and then the audio interface goes via USB to the computer. And it's a bunch of extra stuff. USB mics, you just plug into the computer. Real easy. Well, this one is a dynamic USB mic, and it's very nice. And the other thing too is it does it gets rid of it does noise reduction, and it's got an EQ and all that kind of stuff. But all the processing is actually done on the mic, not by the PC. If you remember, a couple episodes ago where I was trying to use this Logitech software that was supposed to make the Blue Yeti mic sound better. It was supposed to do some noise reduction and all that stuff, and it kind of was crappy. That's the computer having to do all of the hard, heavy lifting to make that stuff work, which this is not the newest computer, certainly. This mic is really nice in that it, like I said, the processing is happening on the mic, so it's just sending the finished signal down the line to the computer, which is cool. Plus, it also has it's got I've got it on an arm, but it also has this cool light up thing. You can see that you can make it just like do different colors and stuff like that. You can make it like a voice meter. I don't know. It's just neat little features and stuff. So anyway, sorry, trying to readjust. There we go. So yeah, that's it was I think it cost like $280. But if you just do a search for Beacon mic, you'd find it if you're interested in doing some streaming or whatever, or just having a pretty decent mic. It's pretty nice. Let me see here. Do you have any experience with Malifaux? Saw some interesting models and may pick up to paint. Yeah, I have. I played an okay amount back in the previous edition, version 2. They're now on version 3 or 3rd edition or whatever you want to call it. 3E is what they usually gets referred to. I've not played any 3E, but I did play some 2nd edition. Honestly, their plastic models are, I would say, every bit as good as Games Workshop. They can be a bit fiddly. Some of the kits are kind of hard to build. But when they're done, they're very dynamic. They're very, very well done. Really good, sharp detail. They've been spending a lot of money on molds. And the game itself is interesting because you don't generally use dice. It's all about playing cards. So, like instead of rolling like a D6 or a bunch of D6 or a D20 or something like that, when it's time for me to shoot my guy to shoot your guy, I just take the top card off of my playing card deck and I lay it down, and maybe it's a 9. Okay, so it's basically as if I rolled a 9 and maybe I get to add my combat to it. I forget exactly how that works. Well, when it's time for you to defend, you're pulling a card off of your deck, and maybe you pulled a 10 or a jack, so you're better. So basically my shot didn't hit. But because it was my turn, now I get to maybe cheat fate. I have this deck in front of me of playing cards that have been all shuffled up and everything like that, but I also have a hand of cards in front of me. I think it's 5 or 6 cards, something like that I picked at the beginning of the game or whatever. So I pulled a 9, but I have a queen in my hand. So I could be like, oh, was that a 9? No. And then you throw the queen down, and then your opponent gets to see if they can cheat fate. And so it's like you have extra dice rolls in your hand that you already know the result of. And so sometimes you can drop that in to replace it and stuff like that. So it's a well done system. I think it's very cool, and it's very skirmishy. It's not a big army game. It's very character driven. There's not a lot of just like Space Marine number 12. There's most of the characters in that game or the figures in that game have a name. And so yeah, it's cool. I miss the old mic. Used to like the sound of someone moving up or down stairs. Well, I mean, I understand that. Malifaux is the bomb if you can find people to play with. Really fun. Love the card dynamic. Yeah, the card thing is very cool. I like that a lot. Cursed City question: the models are awesome, but has anyone learned to play the game? Was it worth buying the box, or should I just pick up the models? I mean, it depends. I don't. It's a little board gamey from what I've watched, and I'm not necessarily into that. I also have heard from people that they think that the rule set was better when it was Blackstone Fortress, and this rule set's not as good, but that could be a personal preference, an opinion or whatever. So I don't know the answer to that, frankly, but I've heard that it's maybe, but if you like that, if you liked Blackstone Fortress, then I think that you might like this, but maybe watch a couple of battle reports. By Yanlo's beard. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Good old Yanlo's beard. Yanlo is a character in Malifaux, and when you're putting him together, he had like a littler than me kind of goatee, which was a separate piece that you had to glue to his face, and it was, and so yeah, they actually they made a T-shirt that you could buy like at Gen Con. I remember seeing it back in 2018 or something like that, maybe, that they sold at the booth. That was like, oh, I survived Yanlo's beard, and I'm like, well, rather than making a joke out of it, maybe try to make the models not so difficult to build. And I think that they've been heading in that direction. But yeah. So anyway, might get some gaming action later today. Going to my brother-in-law's for a family thing, possibly Gaslands or Battletech. Oh, that's pretty cool. Might even bring Risk 2210 AD and Press Gang 5 players. I have been told by many people that that is the best version of Risk that's ever been made, the 2210. I've played it maybe only once, and I think I won. So I was like, okay, I'm done. There you go. I played the game once and I won. So there you go. Going out on a high note. Let's see here. Malifaux site is just odd, not showing the minis, just showing a picture of the box, showing gray figures. I got to be honest, the gray figures are 3D renders of the miniatures, and they are dead on. I mean, so when you look at those images and you go, oh yeah, look at that, they are exact. I think it's honestly a money-saving thing. If they have to go and build the miniatures and then pay an artist to paint them, every single one of them, it's just an extra, it just costs a lot more. They don't have a studio painter group right there in the office or whatever like they do over at Games Workshop. So I think it's part of that. But those 3D renders, I've never seen one where I've been like, well, this isn't what it looks like in the box. They're always dead on. So, there is that. But you're right. They don't show pictures of the actual models. I will never criticize Malifaux minis ever again after building the Marvel Crisis Protocol core minis. There is no reason for Iron Man to be so many parts. Yeah, that drives me nuts too. I know what you mean. USB dynamic mics are new tech. Used to be an audio engineer and retailer too. It sounds like it's a hypercardioid pattern. It sounds really good. I've heard the term hypercardioid. I can't say it, but I've heard it. I don't know exactly what it means, but I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely so far it's been good. I actually went back and listened to some of the older Every Other Sunday shows, and they don't. Yeah, you could pick up like a hum from the computer, or you could pick up like the furnace and stuff like that. It used to be that I would make sure to turn off the furnace so it wouldn't kick in during the thing, but then it would get really cold, so or hot depending on the time of the year. So yeah. There are a lot of female models from Malifaux as well, which I am hoping might tempt my daughter into the hobby. I think the fact that there's a lot of women models, and also that there's a lot of characters. I have seen when I go to big conventions and things like that, and they have Malifaux tournaments, there are a decent amount of women playing in those tournaments. I know at least one time, I want to say, where was it? It wasn't LVO. I think it was Adepticon, where it was probably 30 to 40% of the people playing in the tournament were women. So yeah, it's definitely a higher number than many of the other games. That's for sure. Going to lurk and paint, but hope everyone's having a pleasant Sunday. Indeed. Skyrim miniatures are probably the hardest put together next to Infinity miniatures. I haven't done any of the Skyrim stuff. I built an Infinity miniature a long time ago, and it kind of soured me to building Infinity miniatures, even though I've been told that the new miniatures are far easier to build because they've reduced the number of pieces, but I get that. Is the website up for Tabletop Minions Expo? It is not as of yet. I was just talking about this yesterday with the regulars. I have to reach out to the university where the Tabletop Minions Expo is held, and I need to find out like what the protocol is going to be for mask and vax and all that kind of stuff, understanding that it will probably change several times between now and June, so there's that too. But what's the protocol for knowing what the protocols are is also a big deal. So yeah, I'm kind of holding off a little bit on that. Also, I've got lots of other stuff going on, so yeah, I'm trying to do that. But yeah, I will definitely be announcing everything pretty soon. I mean, the date, pencil in the date, certainly. Well, I mean, it's save the date is what I'm trying to say, because I'm not changing the date. It's the 4th and 5th of June. So, but yeah, there'll be more information soon. Afternoon from very stormy Scotland. Hope you're all safe and well. I'm after some painting advice. Can I use water to thin down GW shades, or do I need to use the medium they sell? I mean, you can use water. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. I have a tendency to stick with their medium, but it's just because I have it on the shelf. I don't know if you can thin it a ton. Like, I don't know if you would go like, okay, 4 parts water to 1 part wash. I don't know how well that'll work. But if you're just like, I need to thin it a little bit, I think you could probably be fine. I know a lot of people who like to put their wash onto their wet palette. So right there, you're doing that kind of, that might work out. 2210 is amazing. Moonbase and Frequency Jam. I remember the Moonbase, definitely. Gathering more demons for Rain in Hell. Nice. Just got my Car Wars Kickstarter. Oh, good. Yeah. Played the game back in the 80s. Do you have any thoughts on the new edition? I haven't got a chance to play it yet. I've just been painting cars. Well, I take that back. I haven't got a chance to play since the Kickstarter has showed up at my house. I did play the beta version of it back in 2019 when I went to Austin for the first Steve Jackson Games convention called NordCon. And so I went to that. I also went to Austin to visit some friends, so it was kind of a twofer thing. But it reminds me a good deal of Star Wars X-Wing. Like, it has a bit of a Star Wars X-Wing feel. It is certainly not the same game as back in the day, which I think is a good thing, because though I have fond memories of playing Car Wars during college, on Friday nights, it was a ton of paperwork. It was pretty slow, and the cars were little cardboard chips that were about 1 inch by a 1/2 inch, and you were pushing them around on a grid paper thing, and it was fine, but we enjoyed it at the time. But nowadays, I don't think people would dig that as much. So now you've got, bigger plastic cars, or like the size of like Matchbox cars or Hot Wheels or whatever. You've got a base, you've got like different kinds of cardboard rulers and things like that. And like I said, a lot of it reminds me of Star Wars X-Wing, but not like not in a bad way. It's just I think it's going to be a bigger game, and it's going to be hopefully be more interesting to more people, but I don't know. It's a good question. I think partially the thing is that the price is very high now. Like, it was from the time that the Kickstarter started to the time that it's eventually going to come out in retail, it's going to be a massive difference in price to what the Kickstarter folks like me and you paid versus what it's going to cost in retail. And that's due to the shipping problems and the, all the crap going on. So we'll see how that works out. I don't know. Infinity miniatures can be really difficult, especially for beginners, but veterans should have no problems that they can't handle. From what I understand as well, also, like, the newer metal models are 2, 3, maybe 4 parts. The original, the model that I built for Infinity he was a limited edition model that came along with the battle foam bag. If you bought the Infinity battle foam bag, you're one of the first 500 people or whatever. Then you got this. He's basically, what's that fat guy's name? He's like a mercenary, like Yuan or something like that. And this is the skinny version of him from back in the day. He was like at least a dozen parts. I think his ponytail was separate from his head. It was ridiculous. I nearly died putting that model together. It was really hard. So, yeah, there you go. From what I understand, they've reduced the number of parts, which I think is very helpful. Have you played Carnival, skirmish game? No, I have not. I've been eyeing the game out. A few videos, seen are a few years old. They're still releasing new stuff, but no one's talking about it. So the company that originally started it doesn't own it anymore. They, I think, sold it off to TT Combat, I think. I think it was TT Combat they sold it off to. I was never interested particularly in the story or the models or anything like that. So for me, it was never like the thing that I was going to pick up. But I do know that, like, I know Beasts of War talked about it a decent amount. They're now known as On Tabletop, but at the time they were Beasts of War. So let's see here. Infinity miniatures aren't horrible to build, but they're tough to keep built. I love to pin them, but the parts are so small. Yeah. What is a good cooperative war game / skirmish game I can play with my wife? Let's see here. I would tell you that you can do that with Planet 28. You can do it with You can do it with, Zona Alpha if you're into that. We made an expansion for Reign in Hell because the original Reign in Hell main book is designed to be played adversarially, but then we made a expansion that you can get for free or give us a little bit of money. Pay what you want is what it is, and that's a PDF, and that one's called Oculus Spear, and that has a 6-part solo/co-op campaign that you play the scenarios in order. That's a thing, but you're starting to see more and more of that. That Forbidden Psalm that I mentioned earlier could also be played that way as well. Any updates on the status of your new project with Vince? Yeah, we're to the point where we are starting to, I think actually this weekend he is sending it off to a couple developers who will go in there into the document and try to break the math and find points. Number one, find things that we missed. Like, just when you sit down and write something, there'll be something that's in your head that you just assume everyone understands, but it's not on the actual paper. And then someone's like, well, yeah, what about this? And you're like, well, obviously you do that. And you're like, well, it's not written down here. And you're like, oh, yeah. So very first game I designed, we got it all, written up and everything and handed it to two of our friends, me and my friend Peter, and said, here you go play it. And they came back in about 5 minutes and they're like, how do you start and how do you win? Because that's not in here. And we're like, oh yeah, no, you're going to need that information. Like we had like initiative and combat and movement and all that stuff, but we forgot how to set up and how to end. So anyway, that's been sent off, I believe, this weekend. So our rules are kind of in a lock at this point, and now we're going to be tweaking and whatnot. Alpha playtesting has already begun. Beta playtesting will start once the two developers come back and say, okay, this stuff looks good. We're still planning on summer, basically, is the plan. Originally, we were hoping to get it like around the same time as Reign in Hell came out last year, which was late May. But I think we're going to push more into June or July, mainly just because the artist that we absolutely, hit the microphone, absolutely want to work with, his schedule has kind of shifted things a bit, and so we can need to push things back. But it's just going to give us extra time to work on the rules and stuff. So that's been fine too. Let's see here. Tabletop Expo, or the Tabletop Minions Expo, is there a painting competition? No. The plan was, because the last one we were going to do was 2020, and then of course didn't occur. The plan was to have a painting like exhibition, maybe. Basically, like people who wanted to could sign up, and we would give them like a little small area on a table of a certain size, and then you could bring as many models as you want to show off, and it would be like an art show. But I'm not a competitive person. I don't like competition. I want everyone to win. Yeah, that's why I wouldn't have a competition. But if people wanted to bring stuff to show off and then, have like a little art show, people could check it out and talk about it and ask questions and this and that. That's really what I was looking to do. And so I might still do that in this the 2022 version. Let's see here. Rangers of Shadow Deep is co-op. Oh, duh, yeah. Rangers of Shadow Deep is a good one, too. Yeah, if you're looking for co-op fantasy, Rangers of Shadow Deep. Totally forgot about that one. Oculus Spear is a good campaign. Needs spare minis to prep, but it is a good expansion. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. The only reason we did it, honestly, was because a lot of people asked us for solo and co-op. The new game that we're working on is going to have solo and co-op built in from the beginning. So we shouldn't have an expansion. It's not like we were like, oh, well, we got to put out a game and then we got to cover up with an expansion. The only reason we did the expansion was because we had a lot of people asking about solo and co-op. So we're like, oh, geez, we should probably do that. And then like I said, we made it super cheap. So if not free, depending on how you want to pay for it, or whatever. And because we weren't trying to make extra money off of it. We were just like trying to, make people happier with the request. So this new one, like I said, we're hoping not to have to do an expansion for it because we're going to put solo and co-op in from the beginning. Let's see here. Any scuttlebutt or rumors of a Space Hulk reissue? That'd be something to get excited about. Not that I've heard. I feel like they're maybe getting towards it, though. Here's the thing. I got a wild hair recently, and I decided that I should probably dig out my copy of Space Hulk, which is not the newest version, which we'll call, for lack of a better term, 3.5. But I have 3. So the models are the same in 3 and 3.5. It's the newer models, but they tweaked the rules a little bit here and there between the version 3 that came out in like 2008 maybe, and then the version that came out in like 2012 or 13 or whatever that was technically. Also, they changed the logo on the front. Nothing else like on the box, but they changed the logo in the front, and I think it's an uglier logo on 3.5, but nonetheless. I got a wild hair recently, and I'm like, I should paint that. I could paint it on Twitch. It'd be great. So I'm going to do that. My belief is the minute I get finished with it, they're going to announce a new version with new models. So that, if there's a piece of scuttlebutt there to be had, it might be that once I get done with that project, they'll make a new one. So, you know, let's hope, I guess. Let's see here. I bought Timbits donut holes for non-Canadians last night. I should grab those. That sounds delicious. Aliens by Gale Force 9 Games is a good co-op. Got it as I wanted something a bit like Space Hulk. Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. The new thing from Gale Force 9. I've seen, where did I see that? Did I see it at Gen Con? I think I might have saw it at Gen Con. Yeah, might have been Gen Con this past 2021. Oculus Spear is some of the most fun gaming I've had in the past year. Seriously. Well, that's nice to hear, Jim. Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, it was, I really enjoy the concepts, like the things that we're working into the new game that are like aiming towards, you know, storytelling. And like, that's the thing that was interesting to me about Oculus Spear is it's not just like, here's 6 scenarios, play them in whatever order. It's designed to be, you play the first one, then you play the second one, you play the third one. Things that happen in previous ones can have some effects that go on, and it tells a story. And then when you're done, you're like, cool, this is the story. And I like that. That's very cool. And we're doing a lot of that as well in the new games. So there's that too. You should paint it on Twitch. Yeah, if I do, like I said, if I was going to work on the Space Hulk, it would all definitely be done on Twitch. My next, like after I get done with the Skaven that I'm working on, my next Twitch paint job will probably be another Warcry warband. Originally, I was thinking it was going to be Khorne Bladebound, whatever I don't know, the Khorne guys, like the Blood Reavers, the Blood Warriors, the Blood Sailors. I think I made that last one up. But that was my original plan. Was my next army. But I might instead do the Crimson over here, the Crimson Court and the Sepulchral Guard, and use them as a new. So I'm not sure, but at some point, whenever I do it, I definitely plan on painting the Space Hulk folks on Twitch. For those of you that don't know, in case, I do paint on Twitch twice a week. I'm on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central and Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central. And I usually go for 3 hours on each of those. You can follow me at twitch.tv/tabletopminions. Pretty much what it says on the tin. And it's a lot of fun. And I've been doing, like I said, I've been mainly painting Warcry. I was painting Kill Team stuff for a while, but I've switched over to Warcry. So yeah. Hopefully I'll do the, I really do want to do the Space Hulk stuff. I don't think they'll be next after Skaven, because I think I still have to build most of the Tyranids. Because I was using something else to proxy for Tyranids. I have like, well, okay, I take that back. I have some Tyranids built. I know that, but I don't think I have all of them. So I should do that. Hey ho from Ontario. How you doing? Will be happy to build my own Space Hulk with a la carte models and some homemade boards if I could find a guide for what was needed. Oh, yeah. Space Hulk game reports on Guerrilla Miniatures make me think any version would be fine. Would be a great game for my group and easy to expand. Space Hulk is how I got into Games Workshop in general. Back in 91, 92, when I was in college, my good friend Peter was like, hey, I got this game you might be interested in. And he pulled out the original first edition Space Hulk, where like the Terminators were on 25mm bases. They were little tiny dudes, and the Gene Stealers constantly tipped over because they were too front heavy. That hasn't changed, but the Terminators are bigger now. but yeah, we played the heck out of that. We really had a lot of fun with it. And the thing is, I would go through the instruction manual and stuff like that, which is all in black and white, but it would have all this little fluff in some of the sidebars and little areas and stuff talking about like the Emperor and the Space Marines and the Imperium and all this kind of stuff. And I was just reading all this going like, oh, this is crazy. And so, yeah, that was my first exposure to Games Workshop in general. And then, well, now here we are. So, I mean, admittedly, I'm not all in on Games Workshop. I still enjoy some of their games, specifically Warcry right now, but I'm also, and I still dig a lot of their models, but I'm also like enjoying playing other stuff, and I've gotten down the road now to designing and selling other stuff as well and all that kind of stuff. So there's that, but yeah, I would enjoy Space Hulk battle reports. Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting as well. I prefer stories with a campaign feel. Playing game after game of tourney style gaming is rather boring. Unfortunately, it seems to be what people like. I find that campaign stuff, if you just like go to like your local shop or whatever and play a game with somebody, it's more often than not just going to be the one-off stuff. But if you've got a friend who you play with on the regular, that's when the campaign stuff can be a lot of fun. Like Sam and I are going to start a campaign pretty soon for Warcry. We're going to start a campaign and go through like a big narrative thing, with stuff that they've got in the books. We've been mainly just playing kind of quickie games, because part of it has been, we've been like testing different warbands. Like one time I bring my Stormcast, and the next time I bring my Plague Monks, and the next time I bring my Ossiarch Bone Reapers. And so we've been doing a lot of that, and he's been alternating between whatever the new Conan the Barbarian looking guys are that came in out in Red Harvest. Or he also was running originally his Stormcast and stuff like that. So we've been kind of playing just to sort of see which ones we want to use in the campaign, and then we'll go from there. So that's coming actually pretty soon. I managed to buy a Space Hulk box with no models really cheap. Interesting. It would be cheap, I'd hope. Yeah. Got a lot of old metal Terminators and old Gene Stealers been using to play the game for months now. Nice. Yeah, I suppose there were probably people who were buying it just for the miniatures, I guess. That's, just finishing off my Space Hulk original edition. I've 3D printed the rooms and corridors using STLs from printable scenery. It's very impressive when put together. I remember going to conventions and seeing like people building like 3D Space Hulk, like instead of just the tiles, and you're like, you've got walls and the whole deal and doors you pull out of the way and stuff like that. And they were big, huge kind of tabletop sort of situations, and they were super interesting. For me, like that amount of space is maybe a little difficult to figure out, but yeah, it's interesting though. Old World Rumors just got a bump, so cross his fingers for some Mordheim. They could even do a version for Warcry like Return to Mordheim or Shadows of. That'd be kind of interesting. I would love them to redo Mordheim, honestly. I think that it would be a little hard. I don't know. I'd made a video about this a while back, about whether they're going to bring back Mordheim or not. And if they did, would we be talking about Old World? Would we be talking about new Age of Sigmar kind of models? Like, there's a lot of, it's up in the air. But I think it'd be very cool if they did. I definitely would like it. Listening while getting ready for last day selling at Orcon. Oh, nice. Been a game advocate for Kings of War. Yeah, again, and that's a little bit tougher because Kings of War being an army game, and then you've got to have like 2 armies. Now, admittedly, Kings of War doesn't require, from what I understand, as many models as say like Age of Sigmar or 40K or stuff like that. But yeah, that's a good idea, I think. The like Bolt Action, if you're familiar with that, it's a World War II historical game. That one is, as far as size is concerned, and I've just been thinking about it on and off lately because local shop, not in town here, but next town over, has decided they're going to start carrying it, which I was kind of surprised by. I was talking to the owner on Thursday, and he was like, yeah, we're going to start carrying that. And actually, he said they were getting rid of Privateer Press, and they were going to start picking up Bolt Action, which I thought was interesting. But like that game is like kind of straddles the line between Skirmish and Army, because generally in Bolt Action, you're maybe going to have about 30 models plus a tank, usually. And I'm not particularly interested in playing Bolt Action per se, but Conflict 47, which is like alternate weird World War II version of Bolt Action, I'm more interested in. And I've got a couple of friends that have got starter boxes, and we always talk about how we should probably sit down and actually start working on them, and then we'll see. But it would be cool, though. that is a game that if you were going to become an advocate for it, whether it's Bolt Action or Conflict 47, it would be slightly easier just because the armies are not quite as large. So I was at the game store yesterday watching a game of Chain of Command, and the guys were talking about having fond memories of chainmail. That's some old school TSR stuff right there, yeah. Could you use the terrain from Necromunda for Space Hulk? I mean, maybe. I mean, you could do whatever you want, really, but yeah, maybe. I could see how it could be work, potentially. Don't tease me about a new version of Mordheim. I mean, again, I don't know anything about there being a new version of Mordheim. I think it would be cool, but there's a lot of things I think would be cool that evidently aren't. So, you know, that happens. Let's see here. Mordheim was amazing, but it would likely not happen as it was. Likely an Age of Sigmar push. I would suspect. The only other possibility is if they do eventually release the heck do you call it? The old world stuff. Now the question is, of course, is the old world game going to be basically like Horus Heresy, right? So if you get into Horus Heresy, you are using a slightly older version of 40k rules, something closer to like 7th edition, and you're also using models that are almost all exclusively from Forge World, which means resin and stuff like that. There are some plastic models that you can use for Horus Heresy that came out in the Betrayal at Kelth or whatever, you know. So there are some plastic like regular Space Marines, but they're like old school Space Marines, not covered in skulls because it's before the Emperor died. It took me a long time to understand that. So like in Christianity, you use the cross all over the place because it represents, you know, Christ on the cross, and it's the cross, and that's the thing, and that's where he died. The skull in 40k is basically to let you know that the Emperor is nearly dead, kind of. It's like the skull is basically the cross of 40k, which is why it's all over everything all the time. It's like that TV show that was, it's a Amazon Prime show, The Man in the High Castle, which is like alternate history, like the Axis won World War II, and so now America is half owned by the Japanese and half owned by the Germans, and there's like a no man's land kind of in the middle. And so you're like looking around New York, and instead of where there would be American flags everywhere, there's Nazi flags everywhere, and instead of being, you know, stars on buildings and things like that, there's just like, they just work the swastika into all kinds of places, and you're just like, oh yeah, like as an American, you're like, I guess I never noticed how many stars there are all over the place. But when you swap them with something else, then it starts to stand out. And it's the same thing with the skulls. When I first saw the plastic models for Betrayal at Kelth, I'm like, why are these Space Marines not covered in skulls? That's weird. And I'm like, oh, because the Emperor's not dead yet, and he's not a deity, or he's not, you know, worshipped yet, because back in that day they weren't worshiping because he was just a dude. Anyway. And he was also against religion, the Emperor, at the time. So, anyway, long story short is Old World will probably use a lot of Forge World models, which are more expensive, more difficult to find, that kind of thing. It would be hard to release Mordheim for that, in my opinion. So that's why I think I posited, if I remember correctly in the video, there's more likely a case that it would be Mordheim or like New Mordheim or whatever. It'd be using a lot of Age of Sigmar stuff. Shadows of Mordheim, that's a good name. I like that name. Someone mentioned that. Long-time lurker, first time making it to the talk show. Well, glad to have you, Benjamin. What do you think about Star Wars Legion and its longevity? My local game store refuses to carry it, saying Asmodee has a bad history. Well, Asmodee does not have a good history. I'm not going to lie, at least in my opinion. I mean, it's their choice. You know what I mean? They don't want to carry it. They don't want to carry it. My local shop here in town carries it pretty heavy. And it was getting played for a while. I'm seeing a little bit of it, less of it these days, but there's still some players that are getting together and playing at the shop. It's always difficult to tell what's going on not at the shop, obviously. You know, I can't look in everyone's house and see what they're playing. That'd be a good app. Not so much looking in the house, but then being able to, that'd be good for Game 4 to just track like what games you're playing, so that would be useful to know. Some sort of heat map we could show for like what games get played where. Anyway, it's another day. What's the time? Okay. So Yeah, that's the thing. Like my local shop is starting to see a definite uptick in the Marvel game instead of the Star Wars game. Like sales are still okay on the Star Wars game, but you're not seeing it played in the shop as much from what my local store owner friend is letting me know. So yeah, I don't know. And again, games that get played heavy in one part of the country or the world don't get played in another part, and there's all these weird little pockets, specifically in the miniature world. So yeah, but I don't know. Asmodee, I'm not going to lie, I've never been a big fan of as a company. Now they've been purchased. They've been purchased by another company whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, but they are the company that bought them at least owns a bunch of other like nerd type properties. They own some other game companies, like video game companies. They also own, I think they own Dark Horse Comics, maybe. So previously Asmodee was owned by basically just an investor group. Now they're owned by a big company that has other properties and hopefully understands stuff a little bit better. But I know Asmodee took Star Wars Legion away from Fantasy Flight. Asmodee owns Fantasy Flight. They took that away and gave it to Atomic Mass Games, who are the guys who made the Marvel game, and it's been a whole thing. So who knows what's going to happen, honestly. I'm sure that there's a couple of different Star Wars Legion podcasts out there that have a much better handle on it than I do, but I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the Asmodee stuff. You know what I mean? Let's see here. What else have we got? To me, Mordheim was more about the mechanics and the character building advancement than all the lore. Yeah, I mean, I agree. But I'm not a super huge guy who's a big lore guy usually, so there's that. I can understand that. But there are plenty of people out there who love the lore stuff. My biggest issue, and I think I mentioned this in the video that I did, my biggest issue with Mordheim was the fact that, like, when we used to play, like, there were certain armies, there were certain factions that we just didn't allow because they were broken. Like, you know, like, yeah, nobody gets to play this group because they're broken. So I would like them to figure out a way. Like, that's one of the big benefits of Frostgrave, is that everybody shares the same henchman. Like, as far as the type of henchman. I'm not saying that this henchman like switches teams, but I'm just saying there are rogues or thugs, there are Templars, there are this, as opposed to in Mordheim, where like this faction had these 6 different possible henchmen, and then this faction had these different henchmen, and they were very different. The other downside to that is if you decided you wanted to stop playing this group and start playing this type of group, you had to completely start from scratch because you couldn't just bring your henchmen over. Whereas in Frostgrave, your henchmen are very modular. They can go to wherever, and you're just changing your wizard and your apprentice. So yeah, that was a smart move on Joe's part when making Frostgrave, for sure. Next Level Painting did a fun job painting Daredevil this week. Really seems fun to paint them. I've been told that they're a lot of fun to paint, but they sort of suck to build. Specifically, the Marvel models that came in the original core box. They're just real hard to build. So we'll see how that goes. More Legion than MCP at LVO. I mean, I think that specifically, as I didn't go to LVO this year, but I went in 2020, I went in 2019, I think I went in 2018. I definitely noticed in 2019 and 2020 that the LVO presence there was large. And again, that can be a pocket sort of situation where you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, we're, you know, the people who are the tournament organizers maybe live closer to Las Vegas, and so they go there and they run a bunch of stuff and they get a lot of people to go there and all that kind of stuff. But maybe at another convention like Nova or Adepticon, maybe it swings the other direction. It always depends. Found a good entry game is the Bladeborn board game, almost the same rules as Warcry, so it's easy to move up to the full game. Yeah, I know that's one of those that you can only get at like Barnes and Noble or maybe Target. I think it's one of the, yeah. I don't know if you can get it from the Games Workshop site. Miniature Market is having a big sale on Legion and Star Wars minis. That makes me nervous. That's interesting too, because, and this is also interesting. Miniature Market got bought by Asmodee. It didn't make a bunch of news until relatively recently, but yeah, Miniature Market is owned by Asmodee, which when Asmodee bought them, that didn't put out a bunch of press releases and let everybody know that. And so I don't know what that means for them selling a discounted Star Wars stuff. That's a good question. I don't know. Embracer purchased Asmodee. Is that the name of it? For some reason the word Exciter was rolling around in my head, and I don't know why. Warhammer was another game they came out with when my group was playing 2nd edition 40k and Battlefleet Gothic. Nobody had the time to start another game. Yeah, I mean, I remember when Star Wars Armada came out, and a friend of mine showed it to me, and we played a couple of demo games and stuff, and then he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, I probably would have bought this if I didn't already have a whole bunch of Star Wars X-Wing stuff. It seemed kind of weird for them to be like, hey, let's release a game that's kind of like a game that we already make. Maybe with the hopes that people will buy both. And I'm sure there are folks out there that did buy both, but I was kind of like, well, I'm gonna stick with one over the other, I guess. And honestly, Armada was cool. They had some really cool mechanics to the way it worked, but yeah. After my Cap and Iron Man experience this week, I can definitely vouch for the MCP core box minis being a pain in the ass to build. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Sharing types seems to be a big thing with most, if not all, of the Osprey games. I also like that the rules are not tied to one company's minis. And that's part of it right there, too. Like Games Workshop, the reason that you couldn't share, and they might do the same thing, I'm sure they'll do the same thing if they ever do make a new version of Mordheim. The reason you can't share henchmen is because then, well, if you want 2 different groups, then you got to buy more models. You know, they're trying to sell you models. Whereas Osprey, or any other miniatures agnostic game, is not particularly trying to sell you models. So they'll be like, well, we're going to make henchmen kind of normal or, generic or whatever the deal might be, with the idea that you've already got models, you can use them, there you go. With miniature agnostic games, you are trying to sell the rules, you are not trying to sell models. Whereas most companies are trying to sell you models, and they're giving you the rules for free, and then there's Games Workshop who's trying to sell you a whole bunch of rules and a whole bunch of models all at the same time. So it is what it is. Oops. Let's see here. Crisis Protocol minis are harder to build than something like GW minis, and there are certainly some fiddly parts, but they're that bad. I'm assuming you're saying not that bad. Yes, there you go. Yeah, I mean, there have been some GW models lately that I've been like, why is this like the Chaos Lord on Karkadrak? It's from the Slaves of Darkness Start Collecting box. He was a real pain in the butt to build. I failed building the Crack-a-lack-a-ding-dong, whatever, that stupid lizard guy. I had to go and actually go onto eBay and buy a built copy that somebody else had made. Like, because there's always people on eBay who will build something and then never paint it and then go, well, I'm going to sell this because I need money for whatever. And so if you ever find a model that you're like, I don't want to build this, or I am having a hard time building, go look on eBay, because you'll find an unpainted version on eBay almost all the time. So yeah, that model was unnecessarily stupidly built, in my opinion. That guy from Cursed City, that with all the gun with all of the vampire spikes and stuff like that, he was far too many parts, in my opinion. I don't know. I think that Games Workshop has been doing a thing lately where they're trying to make the models very, very clever, so that the sprue profile when you look at it, the sprue from the side can be shorter, so you can fit more sprues into a box. So they'll be like, well, we'll just make it so this guy takes 12 parts to put together instead of being 2 parts that are like, 2 halves, and then there you go. So yeah, they're passing the pain in the butt along to us, which is great. I don't know. Yeah, there's been some models that they go together super easy, but if it's push fit, then it's super easy. But like I said, there were a couple of those models from Cursed City that I was like, why is this such a pain in the butt to build? And there you go. So yeah. Don't forget GW trying to sell you books. Lots of books. Very true. Very true. Is Frostgrave just Mordheim, not by Games Workshop? It's Mordheim-esque, sure. So like the concept of Frostgrave, the concept of Mordheim is that the big meteor comes and hits the city of Mordheim, or whatever the city was called previous to that, or whatever. And then, you're basically treasure hunters that are going into the ruins of the city to find these pieces of warpstone and yada yada. Frostgrave was a city that was this huge big city that was filled with wizards. It was like this huge magical capital, and it was tons of wizards. And then at some point, either something went wrong, or there was some sort of sabotage or who knows what, and a spell went off that froze the entire city under a layer of ice for 1,000 years. And then, as of recently, that clock went ding and the 1,000 years is up, and now the city is starting to thaw out. So again, treasure hunters going into the city to look for cool things, but there are, you know, undead who might attack them and this and that and other thing. So it is definitely inspired by Mordheim, but it's also one of those, I feel like Joe McCullough, who wrote it, sat down and was like, look, I love Mordheim, but there's this problem, and this problem, and I'm going to try to fix all of those and then make it into this rule set. So yeah, it's got a Mordheim vibe to it, not lore again, but as far as rules and stuff like that. I mean, even then, it's using 20-siders. Like, it's not even using the, it's got some of the same flavor, I guess, and it's got some of the same tropes, but it's not the same game. Like I said, all henchmen are basically interchangeable amongst the different factions. It's not even so much that you're a faction. You have a wizard and you have an apprentice, and your wizard might be a necromancer, or your wizard might be a fire thrower, and I forget the name of that, telekinetic. I mean, there's all kinds of different possible things that your wizard does, and then your apprentice by proxy does that, but your thug, your Templar, your knight, your crossbowman, they're the same no matter what kind of wizard and apprentice you decide to go with. So it kind of makes things easy that way. But there's lots of different types of hench people to pick from. So when you're building your group, you can go more ranged, you can go more upfront and personal, you can do sneaky, whatever you want to do. It's a decent game. And then Stargrave is a sci-fi version of it. And the big benefit in my mind for Stargrave is that instead of having a wizard and an apprentice who are basically, the apprentice is just basically waiting for the wizard to die and they have to use the same kind of skill set. In Stargrave, you have a captain and a first mate, and the captain might use one particular type of, maybe is a veteran, or maybe is a robotics expert, or maybe is a whatever. And the first mate can be completely different. So you can actually have different skill sets between the two, and you're not just like, well, the apprentice is just basically a weaker wizard who is just waiting for the wizard to die so they can become a wizard, because that's the way that game works. So anyway, Van Saar was my worst building experience. I've had fine luck, I feel, with Van Saar. I've built some Van Saar. I like those models quite a bit. Yeah, I've never had a terrible luck with them. I've had worse luck with, even though I love the models, the Corvus Cabal I find to be hard to build for Warcry. Let's see here. Joseph McCullough, author of Frostgrave, said he made the game mostly so that he could use all the D&D minis he had and play a game where he could use them more often than in D&D. Makes sense. Yeah. I played Frostgrave yesterday, and someone described it as in a fantastic way. Frostgrave is Blood Bowl set in Mordheim with 5 balls. I don't know about Blood Bowl, because that's like a football, like American-style football-style game. I don't know you throw... Yeah, it's in the area, but it's not. It doesn't seem like a sport to me, I guess. There you go. Frostgrave is probably the closest thing there is to Mordheim nowadays, but they have their differences. Very true, very true. How do I learn to paint and craft like you? I don't know. I mean, it's honestly, I've just been doing it for a very long time, so that helps. So it takes time. And practice, I don't know. I guess that's probably my best answer, unfortunately. Don't get me wrong, the modern GW models look amazing, but sometimes I prefer a nice hand-sculpted mini as a relaxing palette cleanser. I am kind of done with most hand-sculpted minis. I've painted enough where I'm like working on the model and I'm like, is that a pouch or a fold in his tunic? I don't know what that little thing is I'm supposed to paint right there, and I don't know. And in generally, at least it seems for me, that most 3D sculpted, computer sculpted models are more specific in what's going on. Like, they know, like, you can definitely look at it and go, oh yeah, that's where this belt ends, and that kind of stuff. Not always. I mean, I'll be honest. Admittedly, they're older models, but like the plastic computer sculpted Skaven guys that I was working on Friday on Twitch, which are the Warp Fire Thrower team, the 2 little dudes, the guy in the back who's holding the big tank on his back, like he has these straps that kind of come down and they just sort of like fade into his robe. Like there's not like a very specific, there's like evidently 2 slits in my robe and the straps go into my robe for some reason. They just sort of kind of end, and you're like, well, so am I supposed to paint them further, or is there? I couldn't tell. So I'm kind of just going with it, I guess, which I don't like. I'd like to know a little bit better. So a little bit more detail, not crazy amounts of detail, don't get me wrong, but like definitely clean details. We're like, this is where this ends. This is a pouch. This is not a tumor, you know, that kind of stuff. That would be nice. And that's generally something you find more in computer sculpted stuff, whereas hand sculpted stuff can sometimes be a little bit harder to pick up, especially if it's in metal sometimes, not always. There's definitely good. I mean, I loved, I never had any troubles with the metal models from Wreck Age. I never had any problems with the metal models from early Malifaux before they switched over to plastics. Those were always good sculpts on both of those. So can't get into the Napoleonic thing of Silver Bayonet. That's a game from Osprey. Prefer Dracula's America, but it does look interesting. That's also a game from Osprey, Dracula's America. Dracula's America is basically that Dracula was driven out of England or Europe. I don't remember where. He was driven out of there, came over here to America, and then I think he kills Lincoln and then puts the entire Congress into thrall because he's Dracula and he's like that, and then becomes president for life of America. So now Dracula is immortal president for life of America, and all of Congress are vampires now and all this kind of stuff. And so it's got like an Old West kind of time frame, you know, but there's also vampires and vampire hunters and this and that and all that kind of stuff. And they've made a series of books, not a ton, but 3 or 4, I think, for Dracula's America. Again, Osprey, and it's model agnostic, but they do actually have some models that they sell in that line that are mostly metal. And now Silver Bayonet is basically Napoleonic, and you are like it's a skirmish game, and you're a division of soldiers who fight against werewolves and other kind of like paranormal shenanigans, but it's like all takes place in kind of more Napoleonic times and stuff. So it's pretty interesting. I have had no fun at all with the new push-fit Necrons. Too many parts, too intricate for my taste. Not that difficult, but you actually have to follow the instructions in detail. I just built 3 of the Necrons recently that came in the Indominus box because I thought I was going to need to build them for a battle report thing that I was maybe going to be doing with Dave from Mini Wargaming, but that's been pushed back till later in the year. And so, I don't know, they went together okay, but they are a little fiddly. To be honest, the old Necrons, which were not push fit, were, I find, even fiddlier because just trying to get the 2 arms to hold the gun and get him it was always troublesome. So yeah, I don't know. I loathe sculpts that have weird things for casting reasons. I understand why it's that way on old stuff, but not new stuff. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Take care, all. Off to the dealer room at OrcCon. I watched an interview with Joe. He said he wanted Silver Bayonet to be a little less swingy than with D20s. Interesting. The Man in the High Tower of Blood. Oh, there you go. I think the only time I've had problems with minis is when it's a recast of metal minis into a plastic one, like some of the old Bones minis, and they just don't hold the details. Yeah, there are some older Bones minis that, yeah, no, they were originally done in metal, and it just didn't come quite across very well. Weird West is an acquired taste, bleeds into steampunk. Yeah, I can see that. Certainly, yeah. I love D10s. 2 of the 3 games I'm designing use them. Nice. We were talking yesterday about how Vince and I love the... we love the D12s, and then people in the Irregulars live chat yesterday were talking about how the D12s are probably the most fun to roll, I think, because they're not as round as a D20, but I don't know, D10s are like got that weird sort of tippiness to them, you know, because they're basically like a point and a point, and then it's like a circle, you know, kind of around the middle. And And then D8s, I mean, come on, like just those are hard. I don't know. Yeah, D12s are my favorite. Our fun note: next game that Vince and I are working on are predominantly all D12s. So if you bought D12s to use for initiative in Reign in Hell, you can completely use those in the new game as well. Although we're not doing the initiative that same way, but the D12s are the main dice rolling dice of that new game. So. Let's see here. 2d10 is for cowards. 1d20 is for the brave. D12s are sweet, though. Same with D8s. There you go. I own a D100 that I bought from Game Science way back in the day. It looks like a golf ball. And it has like BBs on the inside to help slow it down. So when you roll it, it doesn't just keep rolling, you know, just like go off to the horizon. The BBs are inside to help slow it down and take care of some of the momentum. But it is really hard to read because you have to get directly above it and look down and go, I think it's a 68. I think. Wait, well, maybe it's a 57. And it's, yeah, it's not ideal. I would, in that situation, just use percentile dice. But, you know, I've got a D100, so there's that. Has it been 2 weeks already for this show? At least I caught the last 30 minutes. We'll rewatch later today. Great job, Uncle Ed. Well, thank you very much, Ray. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks. Yeah, every other Sunday is how I do this. Let's see. Dodecahedron is also very fun to say. It's true. Yeah, you got a good point. Lots of painting hobby classes at Adepticon coming up and Gen Con later. Yeah, I did not get into any of the hobby classes this year. Not that I tried. It's not like I'm like, oh, they all sold out. I mean, a bunch of them did sell out. A lot of people are definitely looking forward to getting back into hobby classes at Adepticon. But I was I've got other plans. I'm like, I want to try to do some interviews and things like that. So I don't want to be tied down and be like, oh yeah, well, we could meet at this time. Oh, I got a class at that time. And the worst thing I don't want to do is sign up for a class and then have to not go to the class because I've got something else planned. So for this year, at least specifically, I don't see myself either taking any classes or teaching any classes. I didn't teach at Adepticon 2019. I don't think I did. I think I taught at 2018 though. I'm going to Nova, the Northern Virginia Open, the Nova Open. I'm going to that in, it's the last day of, I think I fly in on the last day of August. So it's August 31st and then it goes till like maybe September 4th or something like that. And I'm talking with them about maybe there's going to maybe be like some sort of media panel where like they have a bunch of different YouTubers and stuff and people can come and ask questions and talk or whatever. And then I might do some other sort of class. I've been kind of talking with a guy that I know who's one of the new owners, because Nova the people who owned Nova in the past, from what I understand, sold it to another group of folks, gamers and such like that. It's not like it's not like Asmodee. But the charitable foundation for Nova is still the same people that it was, but the actual convention itself is now actually owned by a group. And I know one of the guys from that, and so we've been chatting about, like, I was planning on going anyway, but also we're talking about maybe doing some classes or something. We'll figure it out. The Grave games are super swingy. In some ways, it's an advantage, makes it super hard to make it real competitive. Yeah, I'm not a competitive player, so I'm fine with swingy stuff. I mean, my rats, my plague monks in Warcry, like the woe stabs that they swing, they do 1 damage. Unless they get a critical, then they do 5 damage. They are real swingy. Yeah, I've had a single rat nearly take out a completely fresh as a daisy Stormcast, because he got 3 crits like in a single attack. So he's doing 15 damage against a guy who I think can only take 20 or 25. I forget, but yeah, I think it was 20. True Geekdom is arguing with your buddies whether Star Wars ships could beat Star Wars Trek ships ad nauseum. Yeah, no, I can understand that. Speed Freaks game was the Gorka Morka nobody wanted. Yeah. I don't know what that was all about. It was a situation of them going, well, look, we made these models. We should do something with it. And, yeah, I don't know. They were doing that for a while. They would like they made that game where you got like 2 Imperial Knights, and they were supposed to fight each other, and it was like a board game, and everyone was just like, no, we're just buying it because we want the Imperial Knights. We don't care about the rest of it, you know. They did that for a while, and I think recently at least they've kind of dialed back on that. They're like, why don't we just sell them the models? Maybe not such a bad idea. Turnip 28 or Sludge? Any preference? Turnip 28. And the reasoning is not, like, Sludge is cool, don't get me wrong. I mean, you know, I've met the guy, Sean Sutter, at a couple of different conventions who he basically designed Sludge. And I have not yet as of met Max Fitzgerald, who's designed Turnip 28. But Turnip 28 can be played, you can play it rank and flank, or you can play it not rank and flank. And from everything I've seen of Sludge, it seems like it's predominantly rank and flank, and I'm not a rank and flank fan. So, yeah, I think I'm currently more interested in Turnip 28. I've bought some models that I want to maybe convert at some point. But yeah, so that's my own personal thing. Hey, Uncle Adam, most Necromunda minis and terrains are great for Cyberpunk and Shadowrun games. Sweet. Yeah, no, I mean, that is true. I've bought, like, even before I was like, oh, I'm going to start playing some Necromunda, I bought a good portion of the Necromunda models just because I'm like, I will be able to use these in so many other games. I'll be able to use them for kit bashing and all kinds of stuff. And I've done a bunch of kit bashing with them. Yeah, the Necromunda models are great for that kind of stuff. Absolutely. Let's see here. I just use Nuclear Renaissance instead of Gorka Morka. I've not heard of Nuclear Renaissance. Interesting. Corvus Cabal sucked to build. Fun to paint, though. Yeah, I could see them being fun to paint. I've not gotten to that point yet because the build kind of went weird on me. Sean is amazing. He's his own gaming company in one being. I'm trying hard to get halfway there. Yeah. I mean, like, so another thing that Sean does is, of course, Relic Blade. And Relic Blade is super cool. And he's doing, like, all the sculpting, all the art in the book, all the game design. I don't think he's doing the printing, but I would be almost surprised if he wasn't. I'm pretty sure he's doing... I don't know if he's doing his own molds and he's pouring his own models. Maybe not. But I know he's sculpting the models. He's doing all the artwork. He's doing the design. He's doing the layout, like all that jazz. It's like a one-man show. I definitely. That's very cool. When you plan to release your next game, we're looking at summer of this year. So originally we were kind of hoping to release it in late spring, kind of like we did with the last game, which the last game came out like one of the last couple of days, like the 26th or something like that of May. Maybe 28th, I don't remember. Anyway, it's going to probably push a little bit more into June or July. And the only reason is because the artist that we really, really, really want to work with, who has been doing, has been working with Dark Horse Comics and has been working on Critical Role comics for Dark Horse. His original window of when we thought we were going to be able to get, pay him to do a bunch of artwork was more like end of this month originally, but it has slipped more into April. So because of that, we're kind of sliding everything back. For a hot second, we were like, well, maybe we should just find a different artist. But this guy's so great. I just was like, yeah, no, we gotta work with this guy. So I've worked with him in the past on a t-shirt design, which is not out yet, but will be out very soon. Yeah, he's very, very good, and he's exactly what we need for this project. So I'm really looking forward to working with him. So yeah, we'll probably be looking at more like June, late June, sometime July, something like that's when the game will come out. Any theme reveal for your upcoming game? It's going to be solo and co-op built in, and so it's not going to be an expansion you need. It'll also have the ability to play adversarially if you're interested, but it's designed to be played more solo and co-op. It's got a big, long kind of campaign mode. It is sci-fi, so there are, you can use your sci-fi models. There are guns in it, so it's not all hand-to-hand combat like Reign in Hell was. But that's about as far as we got. Well, I mean, we're basically done with the first initial stage of all of the writing, and now it's going out to doing some testing and some development and such like that. But yeah, that's basically all the information we're kind of giving out at this point. I think his books and cards are printed elsewhere, but I'm pretty sure he runs his shop out of his house. Wish he'd do more on his YouTube channel. I mean, there's only 24 hours in the day. He's obviously quite busy. But yeah, no, it's cool stuff. I keep my drink and my paintbrush water on the opposite side of my desk now to alleviate the problem of drinking from the wrong container and leaving my brush and my coffee. I have a tendency, I never have that trouble when I'm downstairs because, yeah, different areas, like where my paint water is like ahead of me, and my coffee, if I have a mug, you know, like this, then my coffee is always over to the left. So I'd have to like reach across my body to try to dunk my paint into, or my brush into my coffee, which thankfully I don't do. Or I have a water bottle, which I don't have within arm's reach right now, that has like a screw off top and all that stuff. And then that would be really hard to dunk my brush into. It wouldn't make any sense. So that helps too. And the new game is based on Vince's RPG idea. Yeah, he was, where the new game is based off of an idea that Vince has been banging around for, I don't know, a long time, and he had a bunch of notes and stuff ready to go, and it was an idea that he had, that he was like, I'm going to turn this into a role-playing game. And then when we started, you know, when we were half or 3/4 of the way into Reign in Hell, when we decided, you know, we could just keep doing this. Doesn't have to be a one-off project. We could start a company and just start cranking out games every year. And then we started talking about different ideas for games and things like that. And then he was like, I got this idea for a game. Because I had an idea for our next game, which is now going to become our third game, probably. And but that originally my thought was like, that's what we'll do for our second game. And he was like, well, what if we do this? And I got this idea. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, that's what we're doing for the next one. What did you think about Warcry Catacombs? Serious gamer want to know. Thanks. I did not ever play it. I've never... yeah, I never played it. I don't know why. I like Warcry when I can do whatever I want with the terrain, but when they're like, oh no, there's a pathway and you have to walk this way, and then there's a thing here and all that kind of stuff that's on the board and it's not three-dimensional, I sort of seem to lose interest. So yeah, I've never actually played Catacombs. Let's see here. Sci-fi will be good. Let me use all my old Marines and Eldar. Oh yeah, you use all kinds of stuff. Always use covered cups or straws while drinking and painting. Makes sense. I can understand that. GW sold a mug just for that purpose. Sure, I can understand that too. I like that GW cup, that plastic, that weird kind of gray plastic cup. That works, I think, really nice. It's got ridges on the bottom, which is really nice for like brushing your bristles across to kind of bang some of the paint off of them and stuff. That's actually quite useful. So let's talk real quickly here as we get towards the end of the show. Like I said, Crimson Court, which is 4 models, and there's basically like a main vampire guy, there's a lady vampire, there's a vampire guy with a big 2-handed mace, and then there's a guy who's kind of gone nearly full bat in that he's got like wings and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be the basis for my Soulblight Gravelords Warcry band. I'm going to use all 4 of the models from this. Then, to get to the rest of the 1,000 points, I'm going to use the Sepulchral Guard, but I'm not going to use the leader. I'm still going to paint him up, because I might want to use him at some point for something. But my plan then is to use... hang on. Let me put these over here. The new microphone is great, but it is sort of like right up in my business. It's like right here, and I'm trying not to bang into it too much and not necessarily succeeding. So, Bladeborn figures. Again, this is the Warcry Tome of Champions 2021, which I think came out yesterday. And it is in the back appendix. It's got basically Warcry stats for all of the Warhammer Underworlds models that have been released, except for the most recent ones. Nurgle Rotbringers, Slender Skaven. Come on, man. Flesh Eater Courts. We're close. We're close. Night Haunt. Ossiarch Bone Reapers. Hooray. All right. So, Soulblight Gravelords. Crimson Court. Prince Duval. Gorath the Enforcer. Velis Von Fane. And Ennius Curseborn. That's the one that's gone mostly all, you know, feral. They make up about 205, 150, 120, and 115. So they're you know, less than, I think, 500 points. And then the Sepulchral Warden is the leader of the Sepulchral Guard, and we don't want to have 2 leaders, so he's not going to end up being in the roster, but like I said, I'm still going to paint him because he's cool. But then the Prince of Dust, which is a pretty awesome name, I got to be honest with you, the Champion, the Harvester, definitely they're all going to be in there. And then the Petitioner with Sword and Shield is one of the few models that you can take 2 of. Basically, every one of these little stat cards in these, it says, yeah, you can only take 1 of these in a group. You can't take multiples unless it has a special rule. See, that one says special rule right there. And what it says is you can include this fighter up to 2 times in your warband or warband roster instead of only once. So they do that with some of the smaller models, like the goblins. They've got a couple that I think you can take up to 3. And all that kind of stuff. So nearly most of the Sepulchral Guard, except for the leader, and all of the Crimson Court, that'll be a new Soulblight Gravelord warband for me, which I'm looking forward to. Then we've got the Rippa's Snarlfangs, and then we've got Zarbag's Gets here. And these, I'm running, there's 3 of Rippa's Snarlfangs. They're basically goblins riding on wolves, which is dope. And all 3 of them are going in my list. And the reason for that partially is the fact that one of the really important things that you're looking for in your lists for Warcry, and actually Sam and I did a second video about, like, if you're getting into Warcry, these are the things you should be looking for in the models that you might want to run. And that video will be coming out soon. We filmed it at the same time as the one that went live on Friday. I don't know that it's going to go live this Friday, but it'll go live soon. I don't know if I want to do 2 Warcry videos in a row like that, although I am doing this Warcry video. Anyway, long story. So let's see here. Where's the Gloomspite Gets? Right. So Rippa's Snarlfangs. You've got Rippa Narkbad. It's a weird name. Mean Eye. Okay. And then Stab It. Anyway, that's 180 points, 130 points, and 115 points. So math, that's like 300 and that's like less than 500 points. And then I'm filling out the rest with Gloomspite Gits, but again, not bringing the leader, whose name is actually Zarbag, because it's his Gits. Those guys move 4, the most of the Gits. Yeah, they all move 4, which is, it's a little slow. My Skaven run 6 usually, which is pretty nice. But these guys on wolves move 8. That's pretty good. Movement is super important in Warcry. Like my Osiarch Bone Reapers, most of them move 3, which is interminable. It's way too slow, unfortunately. My Nurgle Blight King guys, they predominantly all move 3. So even if you decide to move in your turn for that specific model, you're still at best moving 6. If you decide to use a double, you know, when you do the rolls and stuff like that, if you want to use, you can add 1 to your movement. So instead of doing 3 and 3 making 6, you could do 4 and 4 making 8. But that's still pretty slow when one of those Wolf Rider guys can move 8 in 1 movement. You know, speed is important in this, and so that's why I want to make sure for sure that I'm using all 3 of the Rippa's Snarlfangs, just for sure, because they're going to be. And one of the Snarlfangs has got like a flail, which gives him a 3-inch reach too, which is really dope. Reach is very important as well. So yeah. Let's see here. Crimson Court are nice models. Yeah, that's why I bought them originally. GW Water Cup is one of the few hobby products that they do that are actually worth it compared to the generic versions. I like that hobby cup a lot. I really do. And I know it sounds silly, but it works really well. Just notice you can copy GW Imperial Guard and Tyranids proxy, not copy, proxy into play the Aliens RPG. Well, yeah, I can see that. Sure. You going to paint the vamps red, or are you going to sick of it from painting the rats? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if I want to try to like match the box art. I don't know. I mean, they are called the Crimson Court, so you'd think you'd have some red in there. That's a good question. Let's see here. Crimson Court are excellent sculpts. I agree. I want more models, but definitely don't need any more models. Okay, maybe some tanks and mechs. Well, see, that's how that happens. Yeah. You can bring in a second leader as an ally here if you like. That's true. That's true. And I could do that if I need the points. Like, you know, that's why I'm going to paint him anyway, just in case for like the roster if I want to swap things out. But generally, I kind of like to I have a tendency. Here's the thing. Another important thing about, figuring out your warband is you usually need more bodies versus fewer bodies. One of the reasons that my Stormcast are actually not particularly useful in the game, they're tough as nails. They kill pretty much anything they attack, but they move slowly and there's only 5 of them. And that's real hard when you're trying to hold 4 objectives. You know what I mean? So numbers is also a very important thing in selecting your Warcry group. So if I'm spending more points on having a hero and an ally, that's cool. But if I decide to keep the ally at home and then just get a couple more regular, folks, that's just more bodies. So that's kind of why I have a tendency to go that direction. Any chance that you and Sam doing an every other Sunday show together? It was cool seeing the two of you together on your Friday post. We did that one time and it did not go well. It's because we were talking to each other, like, because I was kind of interviewing him and stuff like that. And the chat, like, I wasn't able to talk to chat as much. So like this show is about me like talking to chat and that kind of stuff. Whereas when he was on the show, and if you go back, it was sometime, was it during the pandemic in the early days, or was it, I forget exactly when it was, but I think it was before he moved to the farmhouse that had very little internet. That would have made sense. Anyway, long story short is we did it once and it kind of didn't go very well. We had a good time, but like I said, the chat folks were not necessarily, because they kind of felt left out, which I understand. So, but yeah, we're definitely planning on doing more stuff together, I think, for sure. Let's see here. Didn't you already build and paint the Sepulchral Guard? No. Sam did on the channel, and then we gave it away to a viewer. I think it's maybe the last giveaway that I ever did. The guy who got it was nice and everything, and he did, sent me some pictures and stuff back, and like, hey, look, here it is, and all that kind of stuff. But there were other people who were like angry that they didn't win, and there was like a thing, and it was so that's one of the reasons why I really don't do a lot of giveaways on the channel, because it makes people, I don't know, a little weird sometimes. So I don't want to go down that road. But yeah, there are videos on the channel of Sam painting the Sepulchral Guard, and then I had to buy another box because I wanted to do them myself. I did paint the skeletons from Cursed City, so maybe you're thinking of those. I painted a bunch of those on Twitch later part of 2021. This is a Warcry channel now. It's not. It's just, it's what I've been playing. It's what GW I've been playing lately, for the most part. Yeah. Fast fighters are very handy for Warcry, but beware the mount rune mark. It is very, very restrictive when it comes to how the fighter can interact with terrain. True. Yeah, the mount, like you can't go, if there's like a little walkway, mounts can't go through the little walkway, not the walkway, but like a little arch, like in your terrain, especially if you have the original terrain and stuff like that. There's certain spots, yeah, that the mount people, they can't get through there. If warbands are in the same Great Alliance, can they work together? Example, Stormcaster and Lumineth for Cities of Sigmar. No, not in Warcry, I don't believe, no. Well, okay, you can have allies, so you could pull like sometimes, and it depends on whether your people that you're playing with like that rule or not, but yeah, you can, but you can't just like, it's sort of a horse apiece. I've honestly not done it. I know that there are ally rules and you can do that kind of stuff. A good way to find out what's kind of legal, honestly, if you're interested, is to check out Battlescribe. If you check out Battlescribe, it'll show you a lot more like what you can bring in for allies and things like that. So there's some allies, but again, yeah, you're bringing generally the allies in from the same Great Alliance. But yeah, like I said, I've not done much of it, so I kind of stick with the same groups. Let's see here. Any update on Reign in Hell at Adepticon? No, I need to reach out to the folks from Adepticon again to see what they like. At the very least, we want to run probably some Reign in Hell either Friday or Saturday night up in the free gaming area. That'll probably still happen. But originally the idea was like, hey, is there a way that we could also sell the game to people up in the free gaming area, which is not normally an area that you do selling at, but we would be glad to pay like a booth fee or like a miniature booth fee or like, a lesser booth fee or something. We don't want to be like, hey, we're going to sell this on the side and and sneak one around the people who administer the convention, we want to reach out to them and go, what money can we give you so that we can sell our game upstairs? We just don't want a booth because we don't want to sit at a booth all day. That's no fun. But we haven't. They were originally like, yeah, we can probably work something out, and that was, I don't know, several months ago, and I haven't gotten back to figure it out. It was one of those situations where they're like, well, why don't we wait till we get closer to the convention? We'll figure it out. So at the very least, we'll probably be running some demos or something like that up in the free gaming area, at least one night of the convention. But yeah, we haven't really figured that out completely yet. So, let's see here. Salty people make contests annoying to run for sure. Yeah, I can understand. Yeah. I literally watched those videos again last week because I happened to be painting Sepulchral Guard. There you go. I threw my back out super bad during the filming of those videos, just because we were filming it at Sam's old apartment. I don't know, several apartments ago, because those videos are a while ago. But yeah, I lugged a bunch of stuff over to his house, and it was like snowy or something and slippery or whatever. But I remember throwing my back out real bad. So I was sitting there on his couch, like as we were filming all this stuff, and I was just waves of pain running up and down my back, and I was just like, ugh. So that one's an easy one to remember. Let's see here. I'm gonna have to find some skeletons to populate bases and such, as my stock of Warhammer ones are just about used up after 25 years of hobbying. 3 boxes of 20 I got in 1998. Take a look at Mantic. They've got decent skeletons. Or like if you like the new skeletons that kind of came, like the ones that kind of came out around the same time or a little bit after Cursed City. Like if you want your skeletons to be wearing a little bit more armor or something like that, those guys are pretty good too. They're not too hard to build either. A little hard to paint, especially like because they've got like they're kind of hollow in the skirt area. So if you're trying to paint the bone, like your femur or whatever, like way up towards as it gets towards the hips, there's like wispy like extra cloth floating around there, and it's sort of hard to get up in there, but not too bad. And they're not great to. I would not suggest trying to like do them in sub assemblies because they kind of are snap fit, kind of go together. At least the ones that came in Cursed City. The other ones that they sold separately might be built differently. I don't know. Any tips for my first game of Warcry with my brother, both new to the game? I would tell you to just kind of like, follow the rules and just kind of move along. What I have found very frequently is if I read the rule set and then stumble through the first game and then go back and check the rule set again, everything makes a lot more sense. Like just reading the rules, sometimes you're like, I don't quite understand this, but you stumble through that first game and go, okay, and you're constantly got the book open and you're like figuring stuff out. And then once you've done it, when you now go back and read the rules again, everything is much, much more clear. I just have a hard time getting like completely grokking the idea of a game just from reading the rules. I have to really poorly probably stumble through that first game, and then when I go back and read the rules, everything just clicks back together and it makes a lot more sense. So there you go. Oathmark skeletons. Yeah, those are also pretty good. I've got a box of those. I like the Deathwalker zombies from Cursed Cities. Nice. So, gosh, it's just about time. I want to thank everybody for coming by today and, just talking about stuff. It's always fun. And I hope that the new microphone sounds better and it'll be less annoying to listen to if you're catching this as like more of just having it on in the background as more of a podcast sort of a thing while you hobby. I hope that it doesn't sound, there's not as much hiss and like weird noises from the furnace and stuff like that anymore. So that's helpful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, like I said, I'm probably going to work on the Sepulchral Guard and the Crimson Court first. I'll probably be doing them first. And I'm trying to decide whether I want to have those guys be my next Twitch project or still have the Khorne guys who are already all built and their bases are textured. They just need to be primed, whether those guys should be the next ones. But I've got a little bit of time because I still have to paint the Skaven Stormfiend. He's big and got a lot going on, so he'll probably take some time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you folks have a good rest of your weekend, unless you're in Australia and it's already Monday or whatever. But then I hope you have a good week. Yeah, thanks for everybody coming by and hanging out. And we'll see you back here again in 2 weeks. And if you're interested, I'll be streaming tomorrow night on Twitch, 7 p.m. Central, twitch.tv/tabletop minions. And then, of course, we'll be doing videos and, all the stuff and everything. And we'll see you folks around. The sun has come out and it's starting to blow me out with the highlights over there. But anyway, so have a good week, and thanks for watching.